Open. Yeah.
What everything is being spent on, because that's where my passion
You thought it was too much
I don't
competition?
think I can. No.
It was research, which teaches you basically how to rate.
Social and the service aspect of the club, right? So are they like
bit longer, and they're in mainstream.
No.
You do WWE style wrestling.
Welcome back to Panther Pod, the podcast where we interview the campus's most requested people for your viewing entertainment. I'm your host, Max Ortiz.
And I'm your co-host, Mauricio Aguilar.
And today's guest is David Kawika, a mortuary down at LA County Coroner's Office. How you doing, bro?
I'm good.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
So what exactly do you do as a mortuary guy? Like mortician?
As a mortician, pretty much, I work with decedents. I work with people that have died. I work in unison with hospitals. I work in unison with law enforcement to try to find out how somebody died and get to the bottom of their causes of death in order to reassure the families of what happened to their loved one so that they can be at peace.
So you work in the second biggest coroner's office in the U.S., right?
The LA County Coroner's Office is the second biggest forensic coroner's office in the U.S. compared to New York, which is first. The LA County Coroner's Office, we get anywhere from 15 to 20 cases a day, whereas a small coroner's office like Ventura County will get maybe 2 to 6 cases a week, and we get more a day.
So just you, how many cases do you get per day?
Just last week, in 1 week, I had 22 cases.
22 cases. And you get
that's
paid.
like individual bodies?
Yeah. You
That's
get paid by
per-
the body? Or
I'm hourly, and I get mileage, and I get per case.
So hourly means you go in at a certain time and you work your time, or
No,
are you on
hourly
call?
means from the time that I get the call to the
Oh, so
time
you're
I
on
get
call.
home. I have a rotating schedule, but there's some of us that are constantly on call, and I would prefer that because you make more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, what exactly made you want to be a mortician? 'Cause
I didn't.
You didn't?
No, I
Yeah, 'cause
never.
It always seems like those
Yeah.
jobs that you kind of try to stay away from.
It's death.
If you don't really know
it
anything
is
about it.
definitely something people don't want to talk about. They don't want to learn about. And I think one of the reasons I've been in the business this long is because of that, is to try to fix the myths and lies that are out there about our industry and get people to actually understand what it is that we do, so that it can become more respected. Because now we're compared to CSI, we're compared to NCIS, we're compared to Halloween movies. You know,
Every
and
time I
our
think
jobs-
of a mortician, just think of those guys in coats that walk around.
Exactly.
They look like,
and we're not like that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot more to our job. We deal with Social Security, we deal with insurances, we deal with courtrooms. You know, we take things to court, we take families to court. There's just so much to it that people don't even realize what we do. But to get back to your question, believe it or not, my goal when I was younger was I wanted to be a priest. But then I decided I wanted to have a family. And so I wanted to go and work with kids as a counselor because I had ADD when I was in high school, and I felt I needed someone better to work with me that understood what I was going through. And so my dad's a cop. You know, he's a detective, homicide cop, and mom's a pharmacist. So my dad used to bring home his pictures for work, and I've always loved seeing the pictures, you know. And so one day my friend Elena, her dad owned a mortuary, and she called me and she was like, "Hey, are you looking for a job?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Well, it's $160 a body." And I was like, "Body?" And she was like, "Yeah, you go and pick up bodies from the hospital, from the convalescent home, or from their house if they're on hospice, and bring them back to the mortuary, put them in the fridge, and go home." And I was like, heck yeah, 16 years old, living with mom and dad, no bills,
Sounds easy,
just got
low-key.
my first truck. I was like, perfect, I'll take it, Give me 5 cases, 2 weeks, I'm making about $1,000. So at my age, that was good money. And then I
So it is
decided,
good money.
while doing it, I decided I wanted to watch the embalming process. So I would always sneak my head into the embalming room and watch when they were opening bodies.
Maybe
and-
autopsies and all that.
No, the autopsies are done at the coroner's office. The mortuary, what we do there is we do the embalming. So we'll embalm, we'll drain all the blood and replace it with formaldehyde to preserve the organs, to stop them from rotting, to stop the decomposition. We do the makeup, the hair, the dressing, putting them in the casket,
Oh, setting up funerals.
setting up the bodies. So I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, I want to watch this. So I started watching it, and then as soon as I got out of high school, I told my boss, I said, hey, you know what? I think I want to do this as a career. And so they sponsored me to go to mortuary school here in California at Cypress College. That's the only mortuary science program in California. So there's a long waiting list to get into the program. So after doing your program, you do 1 year of apprenticeship. I did my apprenticeship at a mortuary called Weefels and Sons in Palm Springs. And there you have to work on a certain amount of cases, from fetuses, like actual 1 month fetuses.
So like
not even babies, fetuses, like small fetuses.
Is it like miscarriages?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
You work on fetuses up to adults. You work
work your way up.
Well, depending on what cases you get. So you work with a licensed embalmer, and then they shadow you, they watch your technique, they give you tips on how to do your job better. And then after you've met your requirements, you sign up to take the national exam for embalmers and the national exam for funeral directors. And so from there, I've just progressed in the forensic field of going to organ donations, organ procurement, meaning where I go out and will recover the organs from someone that's died for transplant, package them up, take them to the airport, and get them flown to the hospital that they're going to go to. And I've been doing this 19 years, and I don't see myself getting out of it, because it definitely, when you're walking in Walmart and you run into a family and they thank you for the work you did, they thank you for, giving them peace, they thank you for how you made their loved one look. I still have kids and families that I still talk to on a daily basis that have now become friends, So the gratitude and gratification that you get from this field is definitely something no other job is going to give you. But you have to have the stomach for it.
Yeah. So you work with a lot of dead bodies, and you have to go through, what was it in Cyprus, the community college, the whole little
It's called mortuary. It's called the mortuary science program.
The mortuary science program. And how long does it take you to
2 years.
graduate from there? So like
2
an
years.
associate's?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's an associate's of science in mortuary science.
And then from there, did you progress into any other licenses?
From there, I progressed to finish my bachelor's degree in grievance psychology. To work, if I was going to work in the mortuary, I needed to be able to understand people and how they process grief, how they process loss, how they process trauma. Certain families are very quiet and aggressive. Certain families, they make a joke out of it because that's the way they deal with it. So you have to be able to understand the way families are going to deal with their loved one's death. Plus, a lot of it has to do with, was it an expected death? Was it unexpected? Was it a violent death? Was it a sad death? I've had families that you'd be surprised they're happy the person died. I've had families where they're distraught that the person died. So you have to know which way to play with the families based on how they present themselves.
So are you guys usually the ones that tell them that, you guys just tell them how they died, but you're not like the first one to tell them that their loved one did die?
We are. The coroner's office is the ones to tell them, like, hey, you
guys call them up?
Call them, and we'll ask them to come into the coroner's office and ask them if they know this person and when the last time they saw them. Whoever's investigating that case will be the ones to work with the next of kin, and then they'll do what's called the drape. And so we bring the body up to a window and pull back the drape over the face and ask the family to identify. And then we'll ask the family if there's any identifying marks, like birthmarks, tattoos, scars, just to confirm that that person is that person.
So it's not like the movies where the police officer rolls up to their door and knocks on the...
No.
I always thought that's how it was done.
No. I mean, there have been times where, and see, that's the thing, there's certain steps that should be followed, but as in anything, that doesn't mean that those steps are always followed. There have been times where that does happen. It doesn't mean that that's the standard protocol, though.
So how would you explain your day-to-day life as a mortician? Like what on a daily basis do you do?
On a daily basis, it really depends on what cases I have. It depends on what I'm working on. Like, be it I'm working on an oversized embalming case, that's going to take me 8 hours because a person's like 600-700 pounds. If I'm going out to a hospital and I'm reviewing a body, I'll go out and chart the body, like diagram look for scars, look for cuts, look for bruises, print out the whole medical record chart, review the medical record chart, find out what their history was, or I'm in the mortuary cosmetizing a decedent, or I'm doing reconstruction. You know, I'm putting back together someone's face that's been shot by a gun, you know, and making it look realistic to where the family can have an open casket. Or I'm sitting down with the family, making arrangements, going over casket selections, going over services, explaining to them what type of services we have. Or I'm in the crematory working on the retort. The retort is the machine that we use to cremate the bodies, and then I'm processing the bones to make the ashes. So it really depends on what cases and what we have going on.
So like, what's the most common case that you get out of those that you mentioned?
Like causes, you mean?
No, like what's the most common? Like, do you do more cremations than you do like reconstructions?
Now, when I got into the business, it was definitely embalming cases where we would actually embalm, dress, casket. Families would view the body and the casket was buried. But now, because of cost, it's definitely turned to more towards cremation. When I first started in the business, cremation was $400. Now it's up to $3,000
For cremation?
Mm-hmm.
Just to like burn a body?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then that's the thing. There's the misconception of how cremation is done.
Yeah.
People,
because I don't know how
people
it's done.
don't realize how cremation is done. Like, I'm the one that makes the ashes. You know, it's not the body burns and that's where the ashes come from. I process the ashes.
Can you like run me through the process? Because I kind of want to know. Whenever I see like in the movies, it's just they put a box in it, bunch of fire.
Well, we
comes
do
up.
we do put them in. We put the decedent in a box. And just to clarify, though, California is one of the biggest states that's the most rigorous for cremation. So to dissimulate, you know, people's ideas that we do multiple cremations, we burn multiple bodies at once, that is definitely not true. We are the most censored industry in California. So when a person dies, we're going to put them into a cardboard box, or we have what's called the rental wooden caskets. The wooden caskets can be burned, and then one person identifies the tag on the foot, and one person identifies the metal tag that has the cremation number. The body is then put into the retort, depending on the size, depending on the heat. It can be for, 2, 3, 4 hours. And then exactly how the body went in, the cardboard, the skin, the hair, the organs, those will all be gone. But exactly like you see in science class, a skeleton hanging in the class is how your body's going to come out.
Because the bones don't burn?
Because the bones don't burn. Some of the bone will, but the main parts like the head, the ribs, most of the legs, the arms
So
will
like
not
just
burn.
full skeleton?
Pieces. Like we have what's called the rake, and it's a long stainless steel rake, or a bristle brush, and we'll like brush the bones out, and then they fall into a stainless steel bin, and then we dump those bones out onto a table. We'll run over the bones with a magnet, so we're checking for like metal, hip replacements, screws, and we'll take those out, and then we put those bone particles into this giant, I call it the human blender, but we put it in this huge tank, and then put the lid on, flip the switch, and there's metal stainless steel blades on the bottom. So those blades grind the bone into the ash.
Have there ever been any accidents in your workplace or something?
Oh yeah, 100%. Not just that. There's been accidents where people burn themselves because of how hot, just trying to touch the door when it opens, to the crematory, and it burns your skin because it's absolutely hot, and it's just carelessness.
So like, if you don't mind sharing, what's one of the worst incidents you've seen at the workplace because of like ignorance or something?
On anything?
Yeah, just like
a fellow coworker, a fellow coworker injecting, and when they were trying to aspirate, when we aspirate, it's this gigantic. It's called a trocar. It's this gigantic. It looks like an arrow. Like think of a bow and arrow.
Oh.
So it's like the arrow, but the tip of the arrow has 3 holes, and it's actually for suction. So we pierce it through the belly button all the way up to the head, and it sucks out all the excess fluid in the body to reduce the swelling. Well, if you're aspirating too much, you can pierce through the skin, and then the trocar will come out the side of the body. And I had a coworker that pierced their hand when, like, if this was the body, they had their hand up and they were trocaring, but they did it too much, and when the trocar stabbed, through the stomach, it pierced through the hand. So then
So
you
it's sharp
run
as hell.
massive contamination because
Yeah.
all that internal fluid and tissue and blood has now gone directly through your hand.
So what happened to him? Her?
Oh no, she went to the emergency room and was kept in quarantine because they don't know what bacteria this person had, you know. So was given rounds of antibiotics, rounds of tests, and lost their license. So, but that's just because of carelessness, you know. Because
Did she like keep her hand?
we are audited. Oh yeah, you can keep the hand. It's just like when you look at the stigmata, where it's that you have that hole in the middle of your hand, that tissue's not going to grow back, you know.
Really? Oh yeah. I'm
It's
thinking
not
of it
gonna
like
grow back.
Deadpool or something where it just crawls back.
No, it will not grow back. So what they'll do is they'll just pinch the skin and sew the skin back together, but under the skin you still have that hole.
So like you can just poke a hole through the skin.
Well, because your skin's not going to regenerate in there unless they do a graft. That's where donors come into place, where we'll do a graft of skin or we'll do a graft of tissue, and then graft the tissue into the hand so that it regenerates.
That's cool.
That's crazy.
That's
yeah.
pretty cool.
Have you ever cremated some famous people?
I have worked on a couple of people. Yes.
Who?
I worked on Brittany Murphy. I worked on Estelle Getty, Sophia from the Golden Girls, the mom.
We're too young for that.
I worked on.
I'm
I
asking
worked.
this if I know this. You're like, oh
I
yeah,
worked
yeah.
with Betty Page, the pinup model, the old pinup model. I'm sure your teacher knows who that
I
is.
know all the people you're talking
Yeah.
about.
You know his,
I worked on President Gerald Ford
a president.
A president?
because President Ford died in Rancho Mirage, and where I did my apprenticeship at Weefels and Sons, we had his body there. Talk about pressure.
Yeah.
Doing an embalming with a bunch of Secret Service, making sure you're not putting anything bad in the president's body. We worked on Sonny Bono,
It must
Cher's
have felt
husband.
weird, not like stabbing a president's body up.
No, it was fun. But I mean, I shouldn't say it was fun, but you know, who's gonna get to say that they
It was,
did
like,
that?
exciting.
You know what I mean?
I'm gonna say I got to
when-
stab the president.
Yeah.
Worked on Heath Ledger's body when he came back.
Oh, Heath Ledger.
When he was shipped into L.A., he went to the coroner's office.
You know who Heath Ledger is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, L.A. you get a lot. You know, like the coroner's office handled Michael Jackson's. They handled just recently the guy from Morton Steakhouse, the son. He's there. So you get a lot, but you know, we have a massive amount of
Pressure.
no, not pressure, but we have a massive amount of rules that are followed to ensure there's no pictures taken, that there's no, you know, out of respect.
Yeah. So, what is the most common cause of death that you've seen, like in the bodies that you've you know, examined?
For children, SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome.
What is it? Sudden infant death? Like they just die?
Newborns are known to have that, where they just have a bacteria and or from croup, where there's too much phlegm in the throat and they'll choke.
That's
And
common?
It's called SIDS.
I've never. I mean, I've heard of SIDS. I didn't know what it stands
Sudden
for.
infant
though.
death syndrome.
That's
It's where
crazy.
an infant will be fine for like 5 months and then all of a sudden they just don't wake up, you know.
That's scary.
Let's see, for teens, suicide and overdoses. I had a 16-year-old that I had to pick her body parts off of the Amtrak because she got hit by the train committing suicide. So it took us like 27 hours to catalog and find every piece of skin, every piece of bone, every piece of body.
How long ago was this?
This was like in 99.
Yeah, I was like,
even born yet.
I'm pretty sure I would have heard of someone getting hit by a train.
Oh no, it wasn't here. This was down in Ventura County.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And when it's under 18, they'll put that there's an accident, but they won't state.
Oh, like
But,
what
yeah.
happened?
Just because it's a minor.
So what about for like just adults?
Adults, lately, I've had a lot of kidney failure, a lot of patients on dialysis, a lot of people with hypertension due to overeating and obesity, lack of diet, lack of nutrition. For elderly, it's been a lot of cardiac arrests, a lot of hyperlipidemia, where there's just too much fat cell, the cold, pneumonia, A lot of septic cases, a lot of people with sepsis lately.
So in our pre-interview, you talked about how
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
like illnesses are kind of just like umbrella terms where they're just like a broad sense of how they died,
Mm-hmm.
but it goes much deeper. So
Oh
like,
yeah, 100%. So when we sign a death certificate, you have what's called the main cause, and that's like cardiac arrest. You had a heart attack. Well, cardiac arrest isn't what killed you. It's what we need to know what led up to your cardiac arrest. So, did you have a history of coronary artery disease? Did you have a history of CHF, congestive heart failure? Did you have a pulmonary embolism? You know, where you had a clot that hit your pulmonary artery that stopped the heart from working. Do you have a history of diabetes? Diabetes will play a big role in the way your blood functions and the way that your body accepts it. You know, did you have any type of cirrhosis? You know, so you have to look at all of the Lego pieces in order to build the main part. You can't just say, well, he had a heart attack. Well, why? Because anybody can have a heart attack, but what's going to cause that? You know what I mean? And with your age, I mean, a 25-year-old having a heart attack, there's definitely some drug use in there. Unless this person was born with congestive heart failure, was born with a heart abnormality, then you're not going to have a heart attack at 25 unless you're on speed, unless you're on heroin, and you have an overdose, you know, and it accelerates the heart. You know, believe it or not, with this younger generation, Monster drinks and Red Bulls have been on death certificates more than I've ever seen them, because the effects of the acceleration of the heart.
they're pretty addictive because they have a lot of
It is.
caffeine in it.
It is.
Yeah,
Very.
I stay away from that. I don't even think
Yeah.
they taste good.
No, I don't like them, but
Yeah, they don't even taste good.
you know, it's just the lack of control with them. People don't realize that, yes, it can put you 6 feet under, because it'll hurt your heart. And with the way people are eating, you don't know what's already going on in your body. You think you're healthy, but you don't know what's going on. And so you take a foreign object and you already have something that you don't even know you have, it's just going to accelerate it worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because like even me, when I go and I eat out like at fast food restaurants and all that, I don't really think it's a big deal.
Mhm.
Because I like as of right now, because I'm young, I don't really feel the effects of it.
But you will when you get older.
Start getting older.
You will. You'll have clots. You'll have, you know, buildup in your artery walls. And the buildup in the artery walls will cause you to have a shortage of blood, a shortage of oxygen. So if your coronary is supposed to be this big, but yet you're eating and eating and eating and making it this big, when you have a cut, your blood's not going to be fast enough to clot that cut, because it's not able
that's
to
what
make
that
its
is.
way through. Because remember, the platelets,
Yeah.
they're circular. So if you're closing a space, something circular is going to have to try to figure out a way to get through that little space. And you figure there's like 15, 16,000 of them trying to go through at the same time, then you have a blockage. Then you have a heart attack, or you have a stroke.
So most of the time, a blood clot is to like stop bleeding, right?
No. Mm-mm. Like a hemorrhage?
No, like for me, when I got my wisdom teeth taken out, they told me to bite on gauze to create a blood clot, so my gums will stop
you
bleeding.
you want to create a clot, but you don't want to create a clot that's so big that's going to stop your blood flow.
Yeah, because that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, I always thought blood clots like killed people.
Well, they can, because let's say you do get a clot in your tooth and it makes its way up into your brain, then you'll have an aneurysm, because that blood vessel will rupture, and what happens is your brain will literally drown in blood. You're literally drowning your blood. You're literally drowning your brain. We've opened heads where it just pours out blood. So the brain was not able to get oxygen because it was engulfed in blood.
Isn't that what happened to Bruce Lee?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When a friend told me that he punched the air too hard and he ruptured a vein. in his
He had
head.
an aneurysm. Yeah.
Was it because he punched? Do you
That
know?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
know he did have an aneurysm. But I mean, I had a 25-year-old last week that went to bed and had a headache and told his mom he wasn't feeling good. Like an hour she came to check on him, he was dead. And when we got him, he had a severe frontal hemorrhage.
It's like, how bad?
And that-
of a
but
headache
that
must you
was-
have?
It was bad, you know.
And, like,
but
he didn't
because he
think
had a
of it.
history.
His
Well,
mom didn't.
he had a history of headaches. So
Oh.
that one headache didn't seem anything different because he had a history of headaches.
Yeah, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, kind
But
of.
at that age, a history of headaches should be looked at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you should be healthy enough to where you're not getting massive migraines like that.
All right. So we were just talking about like fast food, and you don't really think it affects you. So like, the gallbladder, isn't it? I always thought it was like an organ that didn't do anything, kind of like your pancreas.
It doesn't, but it's kind of like the garbage disposal of your body.
Yeah.
And what happens when you feel your garbage disposal too much? It stops working, and you have to replace it. Same thing, you inundate your gallbladder so much with grease and grease and grease and grease, it becomes to a point like a sponge. You can only soak up a sponge so much until there's no more space for it to absorb water.
Yeah.
Same thing with your gallbladder. And when you do that, then your gallbladder will rupture because it just has nowhere else to put this grease. So then you have all this grease and bacteria spreading in your body. Then you'll need to have your gallbladder taken out. Or if you're lucky enough, they catch it before it ruptures, because then you'll definitely become septic.
What's
So
septic?
yeah.
Septic is when your internal organs start to rot because of bacteria. So it's like you have way too much high levels of carbon dioxide. There's massive infection, and infection bacteria is really, really bad. And what happens is when it ruptures, it's spreading all this grease, all this bacteria, all these toxins throughout your bloodstream. And if you don't catch it in time, remember, it only takes 2.5 minutes for the blood to circulate from the heart to the whole body. So in that amount of time, imagine all that bacteria and grease spreading through your body. And if it gets clotted somewhere, you're not going to know where it's at until it's too late to catch
Yeah.
it.
So have you seen like any deaths caused by the gallbladder rupturing?
I've seen deaths that have been associated to the effects of a gallbladder. But again, like a death certificate, the gallbladder is not the main cause of the death. It's included in the death. It's a significant event, but it's not a main cause. Main causes would be like cardiac arrest, hyperlipidemia, diabetes mellitus type 2, hypertension, congestive heart failure. Other events would be, toxic anemia, high levels of toxicity in the blood, diabetes, the side effects of the grease from the gallbladder rupturing, your appendix rupturing. Your appendix will release pure toxin into your body,
So all right, if you can like quickly dispel these things, the gallbladder, the pancreas, and the appendix. I always heard of those being like kind of
The non-necessary?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
the useless organs.
Mhm.
Is that like in any way true?
They do play a function, but if they were to be like mine, I had my gallbladder taken out last year. I'm still alive, and I'm moving without it. Just because it's a 100% necessary organ doesn't mean it being gone.
Isn't
Your
gonna affect
body has to work harder, because what was working to process the grease is no longer there. All the other organs have to take their part to do what that one organ was doing. So you're still going to survive without it, but it doesn't mean there's not a burden that's placed on your other organs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just like when someone loses a lung, just because you're living with just the one lung, it doesn't mean,
I thought you couldn't live with just one lung.
or let's say someone lives with one kidney.
Oh yeah, the kidney.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you're going to die because you don't have both kidneys. You're going to live, but your chances of going on dialysis and kidney renal failure is high because your other kidney's taking on more than it was supposed to. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if you don't have a good diet and you don't maintain yourself, then all those toxins, your kidney can only process so much.
So now
know
that
what
you
I
had your gallbladder removed, how does it like if you ever eat like any greasy food? How does it affect you? Like how does it?
I'll know it as soon as I eat it. I'll know I shouldn't have eaten that because I have the feeling of wanting nausea, because my body, that grease has nowhere to go. So my stomach absorbs it, but my stomach is absorbing it 100%. Instead of it being processed through the gallbladder and your stomach obtaining a little bit of it, now it's obtaining the 100% of it. So like I'll know as soon as I've eaten something, like I shouldn't have eaten that.
So like it
because
really
I'll
changes
feel
your
it.
diet.
It does, 100%. Like since I had my gallbladder out, I think I lost like 60 pounds.
So would
And
you
I'm still
say
big. But I've still lost weight with it.
would you say it's a good option for anyone trying to lose weight if they're to get rid of the gallbladder?
No, just maintain your own nutrition and your own self-control.
Can
And
you sell your gallbladder?
can you sell them?
No, because
Yeah,
I mean, you can sell it to foreign countries, yes.
Oh.
And here in California, we do have the black market for organs. The whole U.S. has it. It is a high money maker. It really is. Like on the black market, one kidney could go for probably like 120,000.
Yeah.
Um,
But like in the
But then
hospitals, when
again-
they remove your organ, don't they kind of take possession of it,
What do
or
you
is
mean?
it still yours? Like, let's say you wanted like you got your gallbladder removed, like can you still take possession of it because it's yours, or is it now their property because they removed it? They did the procedure.
No, what happens is like if you look in a pathology lab.
I feel like
So
the hospital
like
wouldn't let you
if you
sell
look
your own
right
thing,
here,
yeah.
this is what I call my office. So like all over here, these are all organs that have been taken from people.
Yeah.
So we keep them in
It's gonna lie.
formaldehyde, and they're usually used later for studies. They're used later for like scientific studies. But as long as they're in the formaldehyde, they don't work, but they don't decompose. So to answer your question, yes, your organ does become property of the facility that took it. But when you do your documents, unless you've signed that you're going to donate that organ, it's a huge liability if it comes up missing.
So like those organs, what were they in? What were they in again?
Formaldehyde?
Like, does that stop the organ from working
Mhm.
if
That's
you
what
wanted
we
to put it in
use.
something now?
Yes.
Because I
That's
was thinking,
what-
I'm like, what if someone wants to do a heist and just rob all the organs and sell them?
They wouldn't be able to because
wouldn't
like
work?
once a body has formaldehyde, that organ's no longer donatable. But what most people don't realize is that you eat formaldehyde every day. So you're hurting your organs every day.
Like,
You know,
what's formaldehyde?
Formaldehyde, it's a chemical that is used
Like preservatives?
like if you eat pies. Anything that has fruit in a can, like those little things with fruit cups, that's
Yeah.
formaldehyde that you're eating. It has formaldehyde in it. And from the Food and Drug Administration just rated formaldehyde a carcinogenic, which is the equivalent of carbon dioxide from your muffler. The meat at McDonald's, the preservatives in these meats has formaldehyde. How do you think it preserves so it doesn't rot? It's because of the formaldehyde.
So
but
how
it's
long do you
in
think it'll take
such-
to build up for that?
It's such small doses, but the fact that it's even in there.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, formaldehyde wasn't in these things. They were using other natural things to preserve. And now you have get money fast, so they're using things that back in the day you wouldn't have used.
Yeah.
Like when you go and you eat like frozen food has formaldehyde in it. So that way when it's frozen it doesn't rot. So you eat and eat and eat and not even realize thinking what is in what you're putting in your mouth. It's scary.
So, since we're on the topic of like the FDC and all that,
FDA.
what are the FDA? Yeah. What are some questionable things that are being passed by the FDA nowadays?
Well, like I was telling you guys earlier, the amounts of insects that are in the food that you eat, and you don't
Yeah.
even know it. Like in a jar of peanut butter, you can microscopically find up to 65 pieces of an insect.
And they're just
In
blended
one-
in there.
And they're just blended in there.
It's
and
like
that is
cockroaches and
approved.
all those different-
Cockroaches,
That's- ooh.
flies, worms, maggots, and that is approved by the FDA. In one box of raisins, you are only allowed to have no more than 25 fly eggs on a raisin. So
Just on one raisin?
in one pack of raisins,
Oh.
if they find more than 25 fly eggs, then that company can get in trouble. But as long as there's no more than 25 per packet, they're fine.
Well, like, how does the FDA know? Like, does it run through them?
Oh, they have to run through it. All food has to be ran through. There's certain testings that have to be done in order for the food to be certified.
So they have like, for example, if they
So
have,
like if you were to go to Kraft Foods and you were to look at it is not open to the public. These records are only for the
them,
company
yeah.
and for the Food and Drug Administration. Because think how much McDonald's and all these places would go out of business
If
if
they
you were
found
to
out.
read these things every day. Nobody would be shopping there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's why going organic is better, because
Ignorance is
you're in
bliss.
control of what you do with your food, not putting it in someone else's hands. You know, just like a piece of chocolate. You're not to have more than 25 pieces of insect inside one piece of chocolate. So when you're eating that chocolate and you don't even realize, you think it's something crunchy, but it could honestly be a part of a bug and you don't even know it. But that's something that the Food and Drug Administration has approved for human consumption, is these food elements with insects on it. And if you actually watch Monsters Inside Me, have you seen that?
No.
If you guys ever get a chance, watch the show. It's called Monsters Inside Me. It'll blow your mind. It's cases. I was just watching one last night where the baby had gotten a virus from a tick and nobody knew it. Like, I didn't know that if a tick connects itself to you for 15 minutes, there's a 100% fatal virus that it'll give you within 15 minutes. Last night's episode, this man was walking on the beach in Hawaii, stepped on a pile of sand, and there was a larva from a fly, and it went through his foot. And in 24 hours, he had over 25,000 worms growing in his body just from stepping on the sand with no sandal. And I'm like, I walk on the sand in Hawaii all the time, no sandals. So it's called Monsters Inside Me, and you'll trip out on the things that you see on there.
But like, so what is like a worst case or just any case that you've seen where like the whole bugs in the food and all that have like affected someone?
Well, the bugs in the food, it's not going to affect you. You're not going to die from that. I mean, unless the larva is alive and it grows inside of you, then you can die from an insect infestation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had bodies that have worms coming out of their mouth, ants coming out of the ears, cockroaches coming out of the stomach. You see it all the time. You know, unfortunately, you do see it, especially when someone's been dead for so long and they don't get found. I've had to pick up people out of the water that have been in the water for like 3 months, and you see like tadpoles and little things coming out of their stomach and every hole in the body. You have to deal with it.
So in the pre-interview, you told us about a friend that ate a grape.
Yeah.
Can you tell us like what happened to him?
Because fly larva is very small and it's only microscopically viewable. The fly larva had made its way into the grape, and because the grape was not cleaned properly, he realized that there was, long story short, the larva had infiltrated into the inner lining of his cheek wall in his mouth. And every other day, he would feel it in a different part of his mouth. Until one day he felt it on his lips, and when he went to the bathroom and looked, you could see the squiggly line of the worm moving on the liner of his lip. So he took a scalpel and cut it, and with tweezers pulled it out, and it was like it was a round worm that was, and they're known to be inside of cows. You know, you ever heard the disease, mad cow disease?
Yeah.
That worm is what causes the cows to do that, because it eats away their brain. But this one in humans, and there's only 13 certified cases of this roundworm in humans.
And your
in
friend
the
was one of
US.
them?
Yeah. And you could see it. And he's a teacher of biology, you know. And so every Halloween he tells his students the same story. And he'll show them the scar.
So like no anesthetics, no nothing. He just cut his lip open.
Mhm.
That's
Well, if you have something growing in you, you're not going to wait for the doctor.
Yeah.
You're going to want to find out yourself, especially the fact that he went to a dentist, he went to a doctor, and they all told him they couldn't find anything. But the thing is because it was moving. So it goes under your deep tissue, and then it shows itself. Then it goes back under deep tissue, and then it shows itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we see it all the time in bodies. All the time. You see it. You'll see worms crawling in the head. You'll see worms crawling in the face. You'll see worms crawling in the stomach. You know, and the only way you see them is because you see the skin moving. Or you'll see bugs coming out.
All right, so it's about that time of the podcast where we do a little segment we like to call Put Us On, where we have our guests try to put us on their top 5 things, whatever it has to do with them. So today, I'm going to ask the mortician if he could maybe show us, if he doesn't mind, and tell us a little bit about the top 5 deaths that he's seen during his career.
I would definitely have to say one of the top 5 that I've had was a baby that had 6 eyes, 2 mouths, 2 noses, 2 arms and 2 legs, but fused to one body. And this was the second type of baby that this lady had. And basically it was because when the sperm hits the egg, instead of the nucleus fusing and sealing, it doesn't. So multiple sperms were penetrating at the same time. So it's kind of like conjoined twins. But the thing is that they were born alive, you know,
So, like,
and then
that
they ended
baby
up
was
passing
moving
away.
and everything?
hmm
That's crazy.
They were born alive. He was born alive.
And he had like multiple sets of organs. And
No. One heart,
Oh.
everything was centralized. The only multiple they had was the eyes and the nose and the mouth. But everything else was centralized into one.
Would you be able to put that photo up?
Oh, no, that I can't. Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
I can't.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Because I don't have, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Another one that I had was...
I'll put that at number 1 because that's
I mean, well, we haven't even seen the rest.
This one is a 19-year-old that robbed a bank and ran into when he was running away from...
so dark. Yeah.
No, it's just like
So-
it's so
Right here you have the eyes, the nose, and the esophagus. This is the throat. So this is the head. So he ran into a those big green boxes that powered the generators, and he blew up. So he burned to death, but he was still alive.
Just by
So
touching
we
it?
had that red part is where we put they had put something at the hospital in to clear his airway so he could still breathe because he was still alive.
alive?
He was still alive. And this one, I had to remind the mom of how bad he looked, and she still wanted to see him.
What was her reaction?
She was fine.
Oh.
I was surprised.
Is he like he's dead now, right?
Oh yeah. This one was a lady who had been dead. Husband told me she was dead for 3 days, and I called a lie on that because that's complete decomp. That's complete purification.
It looks like a bag.
The worst part about it was I had to dig through the dog's stools in order to find her fingers.
So
Because-
where was this? Like in a house?
Mhm.
Didn't it like smell super bad?
Oh yeah, but he was collecting her Social Security checks, and so those are the fingers that I had to dig out of the feces of the dogs. The dogs
They were eating them?
They ate off her fingers because they didn't recognize her as an owner. They thought that it was like dead meat. So
Yeah.
what is an animal going to do? They're going to eat it.
Need it.
You know.
So like, did that guy go to jail?
Well, he got cited for keeping a deceased body, but because she died of natural causes, you know, he didn't kill her. You know.
How do you do that to a loved one? Like,
Exactly. This was a body I had exhumed that had been dead for 60 years. The family wanted the body dug up to be cremated. So then we ended up cremating this decedent, and
it looks like a Halloween prop.
right, it does, but that's not. That's really he still had meat on his hands. You know.
Well, I've never seen like an actual skeleton. So.
This right here was the insides of a young girl that died from a cocaine overdose. So
It's, like,
this
really
you'll
yellow,
see.
right?
You'll see this is called a craniotomy, where we open the brain and take the back part of the brain out, all the tissue. So this is called the Y incision, where
Is it the spine?
that is the spine. But if you look right here, she was a bone donor, so we use like long pieces of plastic to put into the skin to make it look like the bone is still there, even though it's not. Let's see.
So
This
like,
is-
how does what like overdosing on cocaine? What causes the death from that? Do you know?
The acceleration of the heart.
And it just like heart attack.
It'll just stop. This is when I'm doing embalming. This is how we do it. This is the opening of the chest. This is called a point-by-point injection. This is where we will inject each organ individually because either you're too big or you've had an accident where your carotid artery has been severed, so it's not going to go through the whole circulatory system. So we have to go one by one. So as you'll see the different, the organs inside.
It looks organized.
This is, let me see.
Guys, narrate a little bit more of what you're looking at because the viewers won't be able to tell.
So this is a full autopsy.
Kind of
So
looks like
that's-
a pizza. If I'm not, not to be rude, Does it not? Am I lying?
So this is the whole actual rib cage that
Yeah.
we crack open in order to get to the organs.
Oh, that's fat.
What
right
is
there, huh?
what is all
What?
that orange?
All that orange is fat.
Yeah, that's fat. Yeah, was that person like obese?
No, everybody. Even if I was cut you open, you would have it. Everybody has it. You
if
have
I-
to have that lining.
a little story on my neighborhood. I had a friend, and he kicked the ball over a fence, and he was trying to get to the ball, and he tried to climb the fence, but one of the hinges was loose. So when he stepped on it, it broke, and it was one of those pointy ones. So he got stabbed through the gut, and when he pulled himself off,
The fat came out.
yeah, I wasn't there, but my brother told me. He like ran and he's like, dude, your friend just stabbed himself,
And
and I
there's
was
fat,
like,
yeah.
and you run out and you just see a bunch of like yellow stuff leaking out.
Oh, yeah.
It was really
You'll see
weird.
it.
Because I was a kid, so I was like, why is this blood yellow?
See, this is a face with decomp. So that white, basically the body's starting to decomp. She's starting to decompose.
I have a picture on my phone from when I went to Mexico. I saw a guy get hit by a semi-truck, and his body was like rolled out like a carpet. If you want me to look
As
for the
flat
photo.
as he was?
Yeah, I could try to look for it right now. I showed you before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like my first time seeing a dead body, and it's crazy because Hollywood really does make it look.
Oh, they do. They
like,
make it look
doesn't even
perfect.
look. It looks like a scene. So I was
Yeah.
like, is that real?
But it's not how it really is. This one is a lady that I dug up after 160 years of being buried. So it's interesting that she still has hair on her head. You would think that would have already gone away,
Yeah.
but she still has it. But you can actually see the outline of the bone.
Let me see. I gotta scroll down. Right here, if you can make it out. It was on an old phone.
That's his body right there. You can see the head.
Yeah, it's the whole stretch.
He got stretched out.
Yeah, dude, it's so like, is that all that black stuff? Is that like blood and stuff? It just got rolled out, cause it looks like a carpet.
Yeah, it does.
And
You
that's
can
like-
see the tissue though, right there. You can see tissue.
Yeah, it was really
crazy.
crazy. And then there was just a bunch of people standing around.
Watching.
Yeah, they were just like, cause it really does look like a Hollywood scene.
Oh
Like-
yeah, you'd be surprised some of the things, the hangings and suicides. You walk into it and you're like, wait, is this a movie set? Because it's just too perfect.
Yeah, cause like it's crazy to think about how desensitized the movies really does make you. Like you don't really
They do.
get it.
They do
'cause
make you.
You see the movie and you're like, oh, it's fake, and then you see the real thing and you're like, that looks just like it.
It
so
is.
you don't. It doesn't get the full impact because you've seen it before.
Yeah, the movies definitely desensitize society, and I think that's why society has such a different view about the job that we do. People that work in forensics, people that work in mortuary, people that work with deceased. I mean, I've had people tell me I'm a devil worshiper. I've had people tell me that I believe in the devil, that I don't believe in God, that I must hate my life, that I'm a miserable person. It's like, no, I'm not. It's actually, this job has taught me to be more appreciative,
Yeah.
to be more careful with what I do.
And it seems really insightful. Like,
It is, because like when I'm driving on the freeway, it's sad to say, but the way I see some people drive, I'm like, okay, I'll be seeing you within like a month or two if you keep driving like that. And it's really sad to say that, but it definitely is the truth. I mean, in this job, you learn the things people tell you to take slowly. You really learn to do it.
Yeah.
You learn to
like
try
how
to watch
important the
your
diet
nu-
is and all that.
how to watch. You learn, like me, I've finally started going back to the gym and getting a trainer, because the things that I see, I don't want to be a statistic, and I've seen those calls where mothers come in and identify their kids. I don't want to be that statistic. I don't want to go before it's my time to go.
Yeah.
And
Take a really good
the way so many things are able to be controlled that we're not controlling
Yeah.
is what we need to fix. And in the mortuary, if people would just realize that the job that we do it's not for us to get gratitude from. It's not for us to make thousands of dollars off your family. It's really not. You know, it's doing something for a family that somebody else couldn't do. You know, because as much as people say we're devil worshippers and we're this and that, when your loved one dies, who are you going to call? You're going to call me, you know? And if people really understood, my whole day is not just sitting there playing with dead bodies. My whole day is not just looking at caskets, you know? I mean, like, Luis Mora, who goes to this school, is the one that got me to come and do career day about a month ago with his class, you know, and then Miss Ide asked me if I would do the podcast. And with the younger generation, the reason I agreed to do it was because 99% of students here have no idea what we do.
Yeah.
You know, students think, even adults think they know what we do.
You
don't.
think of like plague doctors and stuff like
That's
that,
all
huh?
they think, you know. And if I can set aside the misconceptions, and if I can get at least one student to
Be interested
go
in the career?
I did, because like 5 years ago I did career day at Oxnard High School, and one of the girls, I took her under my wing and got her into school and everything. And like 3 years ago, she graduated with her degree in mortuary science, you know. And it's just, it is a definitely different field.
Yeah.
It is good money. Don't get me wrong. It is good money.
Would you mind sharing how much you make?
Let's
if
just
it's not getting-
say my average check after tax is about 4,500 to 4,600 after tax.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Every 2 weeks. So I'm clearing about 12 to 13,000 a month.
Yeah, 144K
So
a
we
year.
make pretty good money. You know, we're
Yeah.
not making the 300,000-400,000 like people say we are. You know, but trust me when I say the pay we get, the things we see,
It
the
like
things we go through,
yeah.
definitely does not compensate it. you
So
know?
like it's more of a passion job, not
It is.
You do it because you have a passion for what you're doing.
It is,
You
because
wanna help.
imagine being at a cemetery and seeing a little girl stand over her mom's casket and say, "Please wake up, mommy, I'll be a good girl." You know,
Yeah.
how many times do you think you can do that without getting broken? Imagine having a mother come to the casket and trying to carry her 2-month-old baby out of the casket and not get through the idea that the baby's dead, and have to keep your composure, not show emotion, still be strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The things that we see on a daily basis, I mean, if we could
It's like
write a
things
book
that
on
someone
it,
wouldn't see, like
there are
even
things
in
that
real life.
people don't realize. You know, like if it comes to emotions, my emotions are so much stronger because of the things that I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, and if people in society really realized us as morticians, we really are like doctors, but for the dead. We are trying to help your family. We are trying to make it smooth. We are trying to celebrate your loved one's life. It's definitely a different field that most people wouldn't think of.
No, yeah, like I was like a mortuary. I thought it was just like I didn't really think about the whole forensics aspect of it. I thought it was like, oh, you just kind of get a dead body, you look at it, and you store it. I thought that's like
no.
what you guys did, but
Mm-mm.
it's
I mean, like
now
that
I
one that
know-
was burned, I had to redo his whole face with fake skin, makeup, plaster of Paris, and make him look like he was still a person.
At the very least, it seems like there's no boring days in the.
Oh no,
field.
there is, there is, but you know, it's like with me, like I come home and I talk about the cases, and my family's like, okay, shut up, you know, they don't like it, you know, but you have to vent it, you know, because if I keep quiet on everything that I've seen, I would be
Yeah.
crazy by now. The only way we're gonna fix the way society deems what we do
The stigmas
is by
you guys
talking.
have. Yeah.
You know, and there's I'm sure people have questions. There's no question that's a dumb question.
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten some crazy questions, and it's just because of what the misconceptions are on TV, you know, and like, no, I don't steal hearts. No, I don't steal organs. You know, yes, people do steal formaldehyde, you know, because it is a hallucinogenic. So there is a lot of things that people ask. So if anybody has questions, yes, I'll leave my information.
Yeah.
Please reach out to me. You know, I'd
Miss
rather.
Sampson should really get you to come in for a class.
Yeah, let her know. I'll come in.
Right. It was great having you here, man.
Thank
that,
you for
that was the
having me.
podcast.
Appreciate it.
See you guys next week.
Open. Yeah.
What everything is being spent on, because that's where my passion is.
thought it was too much
I don't
competition.
think I can. No, it was.
Research, which teaches you basically how to rate.
Social and the service aspect of the club, right? So are they like
A bit longer, and they're in mainstream.
They do WWE style wrestling.